Act 6. Breaking the silence. In search of Louisa. Dancing with my first love. The stage is almost completely dark. A warm golden light slowly rises over an old rocking chair. Resting on the chair is a well-worn pedigree chart. Soft piano begins. An Irish flute quietly joins like a distant memory drifting home. Every journey has a beginning. Mine didn't begin with Louisa. It began with my grandfather. His name was Arvin Wright Grant. He was the great-grandson of Louisa Marie Goulet Grant. Louisa's little boy, Joshua Frederick Grant Jr., grew into a good man. Years later, he had a son of his own, and he lovingly gave him the same treasured name, Joshua Frederick Grant. That little boy became my great-grandfather. His son, my grandfather, Arvin Wright Grant. When I was 11 years old, Grandpa Grant suffered a devastating stroke. It left him almost completely unable to express himself. The words he wanted to speak simply would not come. He lived the last 18 years of his life in silence. Yet there was one thing he never stopped trying to share with me. Every time our family traveled to Utah to visit my grandparents in Salt Lake City, Grandpa Grant would quietly step out of his office, his pedigree chart carefully held in his hands. He didn't need words. He would simply point to the Grant family line. Again and again and again, as a little girl, I didn't fully understand what Grandpa was trying to tell me. I only knew it mattered deeply to him. And because it mattered so much to Grandpa, it quietly began to matter to me too. One name especially seemed to shine a little brighter than all the others. Louisa Marie Goulet's name stood out. Perhaps it was her beautiful French surname. Perhaps it was because beside her name I read Switzerland County, Indiana. Whatever the reason, I never forgot her. Grandpa lived with the effects of that stroke for nearly 18 years. Then, when I was 28 years old, he quietly returned home to heaven. Preceding his death, I stood beside him, singing him hymns in the Veterans Hospital in Salt Lake. Although Grandpa had been unable to express himself as he once had, my memories of him remain vivid. Some things time simply cannot erase. Looking back now, I don't think Grandpa was simply pointing to a pedigree chart. I think he was quietly introducing me to someone he knew I would someday come to love. He could no longer tell me her story. So instead, he entrusted me with her name. Years passed. Life became wonderfully full. Yet somehow Louisa's name quietly remained tucked away in my heart, waiting. Then 10 years ago, I had that dream about Louisa dancing with her first husband, Joshua. After that dream ended, something remained. Not something I heard with my ears, but something impressed deeply upon my heart. It was simply this. There have been statements made about Louisa that simply may have been misrepresented. I didn't know what those words meant. I didn't know enough about Louisa's life at the time to understand them when I first heard them, so I carried that impression with me for years. Then, as I continued pondering that dream over a decade, another impression quietly settled into my heart. I was grief-stricken. Those words did not come from a diary. They did not come from a letter. They did not come from a historical record. I cannot tell you those were Louisa's actual words to me, spoken continuously over and over and impressed upon my heart. I can only tell you they came as a deeply personal impression, and they would not leave me. So, when I finally began searching for Louisa, those words suddenly began to make sense. Joshua died. I was grief-stricken. Jedediah died. I was grief-stricken. Another heartbreaking loss. I was grief-stricken. The historical records have unveiled to me incidents that happened in Louisa's life. And those quiet impressions invited me to prayerfully consider what those experiences may have felt like to a woman who kept silent, not to rewrite history and not to put words into Louisa's mouth, but to search for her through the lens of compassion. Then, about 2 years ago, I had another dream. This time, the focus wasn't Louisa, it was Grandpa Grant, the man who had quietly pointed me toward the Grant family long after he could no longer tell me the stories. I saw my grandfather's face, and I felt the strong, urgent impression: break the silence. At first, I didn't understand, and then little by little, the Lord began placing one precious piece of Louisa's story into my hands after another. A marriage record, a newspaper, a forgotten letter, an obituary, one small piece my sister Kristen and my precious daughter Laura discovered, one at a time. I realized we weren't simply researching genealogy anymore. We were being invited to know her heart. Not merely the events of her life, but the woman herself. And when I found her obituary, the words that described that woman brought tears to my eyes. There she was. Not a controversy, not an argument, not a headline. A gentle, affectionate, motherly woman, quietly leaving love wherever she went. Looking back now, I realize something. Louisa's story didn't begin calling to me 10 years ago or 2 years ago. It began when I was a little 11-year-old girl, standing beside my grandfather, watching him silently point to the Grant family line. I simply wasn't old enough to recognize the calling. Grandpa wasn't simply pointing to a pedigree chart. He was passing a sacred trust from one generation to another. He could no longer tell Louisa's story, so he placed her name upon my heart. And perhaps that is why this journey began. Not to condemn, not to rewrite the past, but to remember and to understand and to honor one gentle woman whose voice has been nearly silent for a century and a half. To let her voice be understood. Perhaps that is what breaking the silence has always meant. Grandpa Grant, thank you for introducing me to Louisa. And Louisa, thank you for allowing me to walk with my sister and my daughter beside you. When I think of you now, I no longer see empty chairs. I no longer see or hear or feel questions left unanswered. I simply see a young bride resting her cheek upon the shoulder of her first love, while heaven's music gently plays, and I can still hear you whisper, "I'm with Joshua. All is well."
I dreamed the gates of heaven opened to a garden dressed in spring. Every flower leaned toward the music. Every bird had learned to sing. Then across that golden meadow, where no tears could ever fall, I saw someone gently waiting, as though he'd waited through it all. When your eyes at last met his, time surrendered to God's grace. every sorrow left behind you as joy illuminated your face. You reached for one another like two rivers meeting home. No fear remained between you. You would never dance alone. I saw you dancing with your first love, turning slow beneath heaven's light. Every step redeemed a heartache, every smile made all things right. No more silence, no more longing, no more dreams left incomplete. Only love that heaven sheltered as your hearts and footsteps meet. I don't know the sacred stories, only heaven fully knows. But I know our Father's mercy makes forgotten gardens grow. Perhaps the love denied by earth was waiting patiently above, until eternity could write the final chapter of your love. There are songs we never finish, there are tears we cannot hide, there are questions left unanswered on this earthly side. Yet heaven keeps the missing verses, every prayer and every tear. One day all the broken melodies will finally sound clear. I saw you dancing with your first love, young again beneath God's sky. Every wound became a blessing, every goodbye lost goodbye. And standing there in quiet wonder, my own heart was filled with peace. Love was never truly buried, it was waiting for release. So when I think of you, I see no sorrow, fear, or pain. I see heaven's music playing.